Hey folks, it's Lou with What If Resources for Just In Case Preparedness, and today is the fourth video in our 4-video series where we show how to construct the cover component of a wilderness survival shelter in 5 minutes, how to create a sustainable fire in 5 minutes, and how to boil water in 5 minutes. In case you ever find yourself in a wilderness survival scenario, or if you ever find yourself in a wilderness first aid emergency. So with that being said, please stick around. Thanks. All right, folks, thanks for sticking around. So, boiling water in 5 minutes. So what are some of the applications to that, right? Well, some of the applications are just simply for wilderness survival, at least. The application would be, some of the obvious would be to disinfect the water for human consumption, right? And we always want to, we never want to drink straight from streams or straight from rivers or straight from lakes or ponds or anything like that. We always want to take extra precautionary measures to try to make sure that that water is potable. And so with that being said, disinfecting water is boiling water is a huge contribution towards successfully disinfecting that water. Now then, with that being said, what are some of the applications for first aid? Well, even the disinfecting water for consumption is also a first aid application as well, right? Because you may be trying to offset the effects of dehydration. And especially if somebody is suffering from hyperthermia. Now, boiling water, obviously, it's going to get incredibly hot, and you're going to want to cool it down as quickly as possible. And we're going to kind of discuss that here in just a minute, too. So, but another thing that is really first aid applicable is if you have some type of an open wound or even a burn or something like that, and you want to try to dress that wound. Of course, in your first aid kit, you're going to want to have dressings and bandages, sterilized type items to help address those things. But depending on the severity of the wound, depending on the volume of wounds, right? There may be more than one laceration or one puncture or something. And so with that being said, you may have to, unfortunately, you may have to improvisationally dress and bandage a wound. And so the last thing in the world you want to do is take something that's incredibly filthy or incredibly dirty and try to place that on an open wound. And so one of the things that experts suggest that we take with us, because it serves so many different purposes and has so many different applications, is a cotton shemagh. And we have our cotton shemagh here. And one of the things that you may elect to do is take, after you've already consumed the sterilized dressings that you have in your first aid kit, you may elect to go to your cotton shemagh, tear that into strips, and then you need to take some type of precautionary measure to try to get rid of some of those germs and disinfect and somewhat sterilize those dressings. And so therefore, boiling it is certainly one of those options that you have. So with that being said, what are some of the ways to boil water as quickly as possible? What are some of the ways to try to boil it, attempt to boil it in 5 minutes? And one of those, there's a variety of different techniques, right? And again, kind of separating wilderness survival from wilderness first aid. If it really is just a consumption type issue, we have some additional options to us. And one of the things that we may elect to do is we may have some relatively small stones, and we may try to heat those up while the water is heating. And then once those stones have heated up, we can place those in the water, and those can help assist in that water boiling. However, if we're trying to disinfect bandages or sterilize bandages, I don't really feel like that's a good application. I think the best thing in the world to do is just try to just boil the water and try to keep as much debris and foreign matter out of that water as possible. So anyway, with that being said, we have some obvious things, right, as far as boiling water in 5 minutes, and that is an increased heat source, right? Try to get as much heat around your water container as possible. And speaking of water containers, we want to go with a single wall, stainless steel, titanium, something like that, but definitely single wall container. And the reasoning for that is if you elect to place this in the fire, and we're going to talk about some options there, but if you elect to place this in the fire, if it's an insulated container, which is what a lot of people like to try to bring with them when they're hiking and stuff, the insulation serves a very specific purpose, right? The insulation is designed to protect the contents from the outside environment and the ambient temperatures. I wanted to also mention some other components that you may decide to bring with you that are hugely or can hugely contribute to successfully boiling water and do a lot of other things for that matter, and that is a nesting cup. And you know, it just sets like that on your container. Again, there's a variety of brands, there's a variety of shapes and sizes, and etc. But to have a nesting cup, that is just huge, because what you may elect to do is boil your water in this, and this you can go collect more water or what have you. And same deal with trying to sterilize your dressings. As an example, it could be a t-shirt, could be a jacket, but it could be a 100% cotton chamois. Boiling your water in this, because now this is a wide mouth bottle, but trying to get those dressings out of the mouth of that bottle, you could, now of course you could use sticks or a variety of different things, but it may become rather challenging to try to remove those dressings from this wide mouth container and not drop them and accidentally get them dirty, which is exactly what you were trying to offset when you were boiling the bandages, right? So something like this would certainly work a lot better. It's a lot larger circumference, and you can access those bandages, you can insert them, you can remove them, etc. from this a lot easier than you can place them and remove them from something that has a much smaller diameter or circumference for that matter. So with that being said, another thing that helps boil water in 5 minutes is, please recognize, and I see this in bushcraft camp all the time, guys go down to the creek or whatever and they fill up their water bottle. Well, in this particular case, this one size here is a 32 ouncer, and what they will oftentimes do is fill this completely to the rim, okay, and place that in the fire. Well, that is a large volume of water to try to heat up in a short period of time. So with that being said, if you're trying to sterilize bandages, you really don't, I mean, depending on the size of the wound, obviously, but we can't, in this exercise, in this challenge that we're challenging ourselves to boil water in 5 minutes, we can't really anticipate every single first aid emergency that is plausible or possible for that matter. So all we can do is just try to do the best we can here. But as far as offsetting the effects of dehydration, if somebody truly is dehydrated, a lot of industry leaders suggest that you don't try to give that individual large volumes of water in a short period of time. Okay, what that can do is upset their stomach, they end up vomiting, and all that water that they consume just ends up being completely wasted, right? So therefore, if we, so I guess we just need to kind of set some standards, right? How much water should we give an individual? Well, most people are kind of leaning towards just try to give them approximately 4 ounces of water. Wait 15 minutes, give them another 4 ounces of water. And obviously, if we're in the outdoors like that, that's somewhat of an estimate. And just kind of monitor the patient and see how their stomach is doing and see if they're starting to become nauseous or what have you. But with that being said, so we don't, if we're going to give the patient 4 ounces of water and then wait 15 minutes, and then give them another 4 ounces of water, wait 15 minutes, give them another. Obviously, as time goes on, we increase the volume and increase the frequency for that matter. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is we don't need to try to boil 32 ounces of water in 5 minutes. That's just simply, that's not applicable, and it's not efficient. Okay, so with that being said, what we might elect to do instead is just simply pour, let's just say 4 to 8 ounces of water in a nesting cup and only boil that amount of water, especially if we're trying to do it in 5 minutes. Okay, and as mentioned before, if somebody is suffering from hyperthermia and they're overheated, you don't want them to drink hot water. You're going to want it to cool down as quickly as possible. So trying to cool down 32 ounces of water that has just recently boiled is going to take some time, to where cooling down 4 to 8 ounces of water, it will cool down much quicker because it's a smaller volume as opposed to trying to cool down 32 ounces. Now then, another thing that you may elect to do, one thing I just want to point, I'm going to use this as an example, even though we just discussed smaller volumes of water. If you place your container on the outside edge of a fire, okay, with the fire being right here, that heat is only going to reach one side of that container. Okay, it's much better try to get this container right in the center of the fire if possible, and that way the heat is reaching all of the sides, and that's going to be far more efficient. It's going to heat up the water at a more rapid pace, and hopefully within 5 minutes, right? So and then another thing that I want to mention is, if you're using something like a nesting cup, oftentimes manufacturers will also offer, and you can tell I haven't really used this one very much, but will oftentimes offer a lid, and that's not necessarily for emergency purposes, right? This particular manufacturer has some holes in the lid, and obviously that's kind of the intent there would be, hey, if I made some coffee or something, I could pour that out, or whatever you might apply this type of a lid to, or pouring apparatus to. But what that can do is, just like at home, if you've ever made pasta, heating up your water on the stove, of course you crank the temperature wide open, right, as high as you can, which is kind of what we're going to do. But in addition to that, if you put a lid on that pot or whatever you're boiling water in, it has a tendency to heat up quicker, because there's not so much, heat rises. So there's not so much heat escaping from your container. You're somewhat trapping that heat. And I do kind of like these holes in here for that application as well, simply because it doesn't build up pressure and eventually the lid just blows off or something like that. But so if the manufacturer, the brand that you decide to purchase your equipment from, does not offer a little lid like this, you may elect to, and a lot of people do, not necessarily solely just for this application, but for other applications as well, you may elect to bring some aluminum foil with you. Now, there's a lot of things you can use aluminum foil for, but one of the things in this application is just simply to replace the lid with, and really just serves the same purpose, right? Hopefully I'm keeping this in frame, but all you would do is, after you get your water in here, just simply do something like that, place that in there, and that will help trap that heat. So those are really the applications there. And then, or tips and tricks, I guess I should say. There's a lot of applications for boiling water. But I think what we'll try to do here really quick, I'm going to try to get a fire going. I'm going to go ahead and pour, I'm probably going to pour 8 or 9 ounces of water in this nesting cup. And just because some of you viewers may not have a lid like this, I tell you what, I'm just going to use the aluminum foil, because I think everybody has access to aluminum foil. And let's just see what we can't do as far as getting water to boil in 5 minutes. Okay, so give me just a second. Thanks. folks. So we're starting to put some fuel sticks around the outer side of this nesting cup, and I want to be very careful. I've cleared out an area around here, and I've dug this hole for our fire pit lower than I normally do, just because we're getting some occasional intermittent breezes here, and everything is still fairly damp. I mean, we did have rain. We didn't get rain yesterday. We got rain the day before. I would certainly have felt better if we would have had some more rain yesterday, but I may be stepping out of frame here for just a second, but I want you to see this in its entirety, and I don't want to have to edit out a bunch of pieces. So I may step out of frame for just a second. All I'm going to try to do is try to tear some pieces of our shemagh in preparation for sterilizing some dressings. Okay, so I'm just going to do that right here, and hopefully the camera will pick up on some of that. And I'm also going to kick some of this grass just a little bit further away. I can tell the flames are not getting over this far, and I have water in close proximity, but I still don't really want to take any chances here, right? We always want to make sure we're being safe. And in fact, I am. Going to put some of that fire out and still see if we can do it within 5 minutes. It's obviously counterintuitive, but the way the sun is today and the way the wind is today and etc., I just had to set the camera up a certain way, and this was really our best location. I didn't want to have to cut this vegetation down just to shoot a video, right? I mean, obviously if it was a real live emergency and we needed to take these additional precautionary measures to make sure that our fire didn't get out of control, and we needed a large fire, then that would certainly be different. I would go ahead and cut these down and make sure that they would not catch on fire and create some kind of a wildfire. But today, since that's not necessary, we're going to go ahead and just knock that flame down just a little bit. I'd rather be unsuccessful today in a demonstration type video. I'd rather be unsuccessful in that as opposed to having some type of a wildfire. So, not saying we are going to be unsuccessful. I don't even have a timer going out here, but I should be able to hear once that water starts boiling. So here's a few examples of what we may end up using as dressings. Of course, I dropped one in the dirt, but that's part of the reason that we're boiling water, right, is to help offset some of these unsanitary conditions. So these are some examples of what we'll probably go ahead and place in there. Now, once again, doesn't mean that we need to boil all of them at once, right? And by the way, I also wanted to mention, obviously this entire series is about making cover components of shelters and establishing sustainable fires and boiling water and etc. While water is boiling, or while you're waiting for your water to boil, there's some additional tasks that you can be doing. As an example, making dressings. As an example, collecting some material to lay down on the ground there so that you can get some separation from the being in direct contact with the earth and losing body heat through conduction. If you need to change the orientation of your cover element, you know, as an example, you might want to shelter yourself from that wind, and it might be cold outside and you want to protect yourself from convection, but at the same time, if it's super hot outside, you might want to orient it so that the breeze is coming through. Okay, So what I want to do real fast, it sounds like that water is trying to boil. I'm going to use gloves, but I also wanted to demonstrate if you had to. Another good use for a shemagh. Is to be able to pull that container out of there, but I think what I'm going to do before I pull it out of there, yeah, I'm actually going to bring the camera over. You know what, maybe I can zoom in and you can see that boiling. I'm kind of worried once I remove it from the heat it might stop boiling, but hopefully the camera's picking up that it is already boiling. Now that I've removed it from the heat, it's obviously not boiling as well as it was, but that would be, and as soon as we place it back on the heat, it's starting to boil again. Very similar to, again, taking your pasta water off of the stove. It stops boiling almost immediately. Now then, once that water has boiled, that is certainly a really good time to go ahead and be placing our bandages in the water. Or not our bandages, I'm sorry, our dressings. Which I guess you could use this for bandages as well. Not quite as detrimental that those be sterilized, but still probably relevant, right? I don't want to pick up the camera and bring it over here, honestly, because I don't want it to be shaking and moving and etc. And I'm not going to add any more fuel to this fire either. I think what I might try to do instead, see if I can't just try to angle that to make sure that the camera is picking up on that. There you go. Hopefully the camera can see that now. But essentially, folks, we have displayed how to make how to construct the cover component of a wilderness survival shelter in the second video in this series. We've demonstrated how to establish a sustainable fire in the third video of this series. And we've demonstrated how to boil water in under 5 minutes in the fourth video in this series. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. We've certainly enjoyed making it. What I will say is if you get a chance to watch some of those other videos, if you haven't seen them yet, please run over and do so. They're on our YouTube channel, and we do have a playlist there. In addition to that, we've got a lot of other videos on our YouTube channel, a lot of wilderness-oriented videos currently. Now with that being said, also if you get a chance, run over to our website at www.whatifresource.com, and there's a lot of good stuff over on that website. A lot of stories, a lot of how-tos, a lot of just tips and tricks and things like that. There's even some recipes, some like campfire type recipes and things. So if you get a chance, run over there. And if you do run over there, please sign up for our newsletter as well. So thanks folks, and we hope to see you on the next one.